Hi there and welcome again to Verse Online's YouTube channel, and this is the second video that we're making in our Believable RPG series, and today we're talking about how to create believable heroes. If you checked out our previous video, and you can follow it with the link below, we talked about believable villains and the kind of the things that go on behind the scenes with villains, how to write them and how to make them not quite so pantomime, not quite so kind of unbelievable. Here we're going to talk about the opposite. We're going to talk about heroes. Now, if you're writing a heroic character as an NPC, you've got an immediate problem. Firstly, it's your PCs that are meant to be the heroes. So how do you write an NPC character who is going to stand out, be interesting and be dynamic and really have something to say for themselves without overshadowing the PCs and, making the whole of the adventure about the NPC that you've created? Well, you have to imagine that a whole drama has been going on for this NPC long before the players turn up. So let's imagine it's a heroic NPC, somebody that's been battling a big problem that they don't know how to resolve, but they keep chipping away at it. A king, let's just assume we'll pull that example out of the hat. A king of a small kingdom who is faced by a terrible monster that is threatening to overrun the realm, and this king is unable to overcome the challenge. Now, if the character wasn't particularly heroic, they might, or not necessarily motivated by heroism, but perhaps by vanity and folly, they might try to take on the monster on their own. But it takes a kind of a brave man or a brave woman to admit when they are defeated. So perhaps part of the heroism is actually swallowing pride and asking for help from the heroes. That's a kind of a good in to begin with, that a heroic character or a noble character has a degree of humility. So if you're writing an NPC who is a hero or has heroic tendencies, one thing that's quite true about many heroes is that they often carry around huge burdens with them. It is fair to say that heroism is a lonely pursuit and pretty miserable. For example, if you look at a range of different heroes, you could mention Luke Skywalker or Frodo or Steve Rogers, Captain America, or even Tony Stark. All of them carry around this burden with them. If you look at the example of Steve Rogers and Tony Stark, both of them have a kind of a different cross to bear, if you will. Steve Rogers is a man out of time, a man who was a volunteer. He only gained his superpowers through volunteering and became Captain America, but is kind of fated and cursed almost, sort of like a time-travelling Odysseus, to be lost and never able to return home, which is ultimately what he wants by kind of being reunited with Peggy Carter, which is something until the end of Endgame that becomes impossible for him. Tony Stark, from the first Avengers movie onwards, Avengers Assemble onwards, is again cursed with a fear, which is resolved at the end of Avengers Endgame, when he finally realizes he's saved the world from this threat that he learns in Infinity War is Thanos, and in doing so sacrifices his own life. The heroes are those who sacrifice or who persevere or who struggle in the interests of the greater good. So heroes do things for the wider populace or their community that ordinarily mere mortals wouldn't do. Once again, if you look at the example of Captain America and Iron Man, they become divided Captain America Civil War, about what the right thing to do for the greater good is. Do the heroes retain their autonomy, the Avengers retain their autonomy to make their own moral decisions about what actions to take around the world, which is the Steve Rogers argument, or do they hand themselves over or kind of suborn themselves to the whims of politicians, which is what Tony Stark argues. And part of the clash of Captain America Civil War is the kind of the meeting of two heroes' journeys, which is what we'll move on to next. The hero's journey, obviously, if you're writing heroic characters, and you need to really look at Joseph Campbell's The Hero with 1,000 Faces and his other writings on the hero's journey. The hero's journey has a number of stages, 12 I believe it is, which take the hero from a kind of a place of innocence, the beginning of the journey where the hero realises there's something wrong in the world, such as Frodo Baggins discovering that the Ring of Power still exists and it hasn't been destroyed, and Sauron still exists, and there's a lot of troubles on the way, along a quest in which helpers are found, and there is normally a guide, a dispatcher, a wise wizard, a Gandalf or a Merlin or somebody like that, a Master Yoda, who tells the hero where to go and what to do, and a special magic item must be sought in order to help the hero. Frodo gets the sword Sting at the start of his adventure, but in the case of Star Wars, Luke Skywalker is first given a lightsaber, and then the magic item that he really acquires on his journeys is the Force. The hero must journey to the kind of the underworld, and they must confront the great serpent, the dragon, the monster, the demon, the enemy, and in that confrontation almost be defeated. This is how the narrative goes, but in finding something within themselves, a kind of a courage, a resolve, a strength, they must then overcome and journey, defeat the demon, the monster or the dragon, and journey out of the underworld back into the real world, which has been changed forever as a result of the journey that they've been on. So that's kind of roughly the hero's journey, and it's always worth referring to this if you're writing a heroic character. You're writing a guy who's a character who's ostensibly one of the good guys, because the whole point of heroism, as opposed to simply the act of being on the good side, being lawful good in a role play game in D&D, is that the hero is transformed by the journey. Now, you might find you have an NPC that you want to write about who's at some stage of that transformation, and that the PCs come along as the helpers along the way, much as Luke Skywalker has to find a Han Solo to help him. The hero's journey for Han Solo is one of transformation as well. Han Solo sets aside his kind of cynicism and finds not only love with Princess Leia, but of course to believe in the guise of the rebellion. And you can have a heroic character, a heroic NPC, whose quest transforms the affairs of the PCs themselves. They can throw the lot in with a hero who is rallying people to a cause in a desperate time, trying to overcome a seemingly impossible odds, and the PCs are transformed by the journey. Now, the trick here is always going to be writing your NPC, your heroic NPC, in such a way that they don't wind up overbalancing the adventure and cancelling out the PCs themselves, or making the adventure really all about them. And that's going to be part of the art form. And the trick is always, when you're writing a heroic or a villainous NPC, I mean, these can be great scene-stealing characters, you know, really, really charismatic, impressive, frightening, or brilliant. But you always have to ask yourself, well, what's the PC going to be doing here? What's the party meant to be doing in this scene? Because the players will be, if you sit and read them a long spiel about how good or evil a particular character is, they will simply be drumming their fingers, wondering when they get stuck in. Because ultimately, they are the ones who are the heroes. They are the ones who are the kind of the real centre of the action. You can write heroic or malevolent NPCs all you like, but they're just really a gateway to capturing and stimulating the imagination of your players and giving them the opportunity to find themselves in the game. Anyway, do remember to subscribe to this channel. We're going to be putting out one of these videos each and every week, and basing it around the idea of, you know, believability, because that's pretty essential to the gaming experience. Subscribe to this channel, and we'll catch you on the next video. Thanks. Bye bye.